camp and very good with the last month here, hanging around the Browns and really just showing off the field and on the field what he can do. What are your expectations for Shedeur this upcoming season?
Well, I think at the end, especially when the preseason starts, he's going to find a way to beat those guys out. That's just my opinion. The eye test tells me at the end of the day. Now, I've known him since he was a little kid, but I just think his makeup, what he's all about, felt like he got slighted in the draft, and I will agree with him. He did. Not saying maybe he should have been the first player picked. I'm not saying that, but I think there's a lot that went into that. Why he dropped so much, and I don't think it had anything to do with football. But the other things that go along with football, I think the glare of who he is, who his father is, I think a lot of teams were hesitant, worried that they didn't want that in their locker room. But when you meet the kid and you meet what he's about, he's a pro. He's a pro. He knows how to do things. He goes about it the right way. So I just think when the lights come on and they start playing in the preseason.
You think you know what happened in the NFL draft? Think again. Former NFL coach Herm just pulled back the curtain on one of the most controversial draft slides in recent memory, and what he's revealing about Shedeur Sanders will make your blood boil. Teams didn't pass on Sanders because of his arm strength, his accuracy, or his football IQ. They passed on him because they were terrified of his last name. And now, Edwards is predicting that fear is about to make every single one of those franchises look absolutely foolish. This isn't your typical rookie hype story. This is about a systematic failure of NFL front offices, a young man who got screwed over by league politics, and a Cleveland Browns organization that might have just stumbled into the steal of the century. When Edwards says Sanders is going to beat them all out, he's not making a hopeful prediction. He's delivering a warning to the rest of the league. Let's start with the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. The 2024 NFL Draft was supposed to be loaded with quarterback talent. Yet somehow Shedeur Sanders, a player who dominated college football, who broke records, who carried his team on his back, found himself sliding down draft boards while lesser talents got selected ahead of him. Edwards isn't just suggesting there was bias involved. He's flat out confirming it. I think there's a lot that went into why he dropped so much, and I don't think it had anything to do with football but other things that go along with football. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about NFL teams, billion-dollar organizations that claim to evaluate talent objectively, making personnel decisions based on factors that have absolutely nothing to do with a player's ability to play football. What were those other things that Edwards is talking about? He doesn't dance around it. I think the glare of who he is, who his father is. I think a lot of teams were hesitant, worried that they didn't want that in their locker room. Are you kidding me? NFL teams were afraid of Deion Sanders, one of the greatest athletes in sports history, a Hall of Famer who revolutionized multiple positions. Teams were scared of having that kind of football royalty associated with their franchise. The level of stupidity and cowardice that represents is absolutely staggering. But here's where the story gets even more infuriating. Edwards has actually spent time around Sanders, has seen what he's really about behind all the social media noise and celebrity connections. His assessment completely destroys the narrative that teams were trying to sell themselves. When you meet the kid and you meet what he's about, he's a pro. He's a pro. He knows how to do things. He goes about it the right way. So let me get this straight. Teams passed on a consummate professional because they were afraid of media attention? They let talent slip through their fingers because they were worried about press conferences and headlines? This is exactly the kind of short-sighted thinking that keeps bad franchises bad and allows smart organizations to capitalize on others' mistakes. And make no mistake about it, Cleveland is about to capitalize in a major way. Edwards isn't just optimistic about Sanders' chances. He's practically guaranteeing success. I think at the end, especially when the preseason starts, he's going to find a way to beat those guys out. That's just my opinion, but the eye test tells me at the end of the day, he's going to do it. The eye test. That's coaching speak for I can see things that other people miss. Edwards has been around football his entire life, has developed quarterbacks at the highest level, has seen the difference between players who can play and players who can't. When he talks about the eye test, he's talking about instincts that have been honed over decades of evaluation. But what makes Edwards so confident? What is he seeing that apparently 31 other NFL teams missed during the draft process? It starts with Sanders' football education, something that's been ongoing since he was old enough to hold a football. He understands the game very well. This guy's been schooled since he was a little kid by his dad. He's been around it. He's seen it. He understands the mentality of it all. Most rookie quarterbacks spend their first year in the NFL learning concepts that Sanders has been absorbing since childhood. While other players are figuring out how to read defenses, Sanders has been watching his father break down film for years. And here's the part that should terrify every team that passed on him. Edwards makes it clear that Deion's influence goes far beyond just being a famous athlete. His father, maybe you can say one of the best athletes ever played the game. When people look at Deion Sanders and they don't know him, they don't understand Deion Sanders was one of the smartest football players ever played a position. That intelligence is genetic. That football IQ has been passed down from father to son through countless hours of conversation, film study, and hands-on instruction. Sanders didn't just inherit athletic ability. He inherited a PhD-level understanding of professional football from one of the most cerebral players in NFL history. While other rookie quarterbacks are learning the basics of NFL offenses, Sanders is already thinking 3 steps ahead. While his competitors are figuring out how to handle blitzes, Sanders has been studying defensive schemes since he was in middle school. The gap in preparation and understanding is massive, and it's exactly why Edwards is so confident about his prediction. But let's talk about the reality of Cleveland's quarterback situation, because it's absolutely chaotic. We're not talking about a normal competition between 2 or 3 players. Edwards reveals just how crowded this quarterback room really is. They got 5 quarterbacks. Not 3, they got 5. They got 5 of them. 5 quarterbacks competing for reps in a professional football practice setting. That's not a competition. That's complete madness. How do you even manage that many players at the most important position on the field? How do you give everyone enough opportunities to showcase their abilities when practice time is limited and every rep matters? Edwards acknowledges the challenge. There's only so many plays that you have allocated. In professional football, you only have so many reps. It's not like college football where you can stay out there for 3 hours with those kids. This is where coaching becomes crucial, where decisions have to be made, where the cream has to rise to the top. And Edwards has very specific ideas about how that evaluation process should work. If you have a young guy at the quarterback position, it's going to be critical that eventually he gets reps against the number 1 defense. How does he play against the ones? Not against other college players, not against free agent football players, but against the number 1s. This is insider knowledge that most fans never get to hear. There's a massive difference between looking good against scout team players and performing against legitimate NFL talent. Any quarterback can complete passes when the defense isn't trying to take his head off. The real test comes when you're facing players who are fighting for their own roster spots, who are trying to make a statement, who want to welcome the rookie to the NFL with a big hit. Edwards believes the preseason will be Sanders coming out party. In the preseason, when you get the other team playing their ones on defense, you got to get those guys in the game. They got to go out there with the number 1 offensive line, and they got to go against the ones on defense. Picture that scenario for a moment. Sanders under center, first team protection, facing a legitimate NFL defense that's trying to make him look foolish. That's when all the college stats and combined numbers become irrelevant. That's when you find out if a player can actually handle the speed and physicality of professional football. And that's when Edwards expects Sanders to separate himself from every other quarterback in Cleveland's facility. When the lights come on, look out. I think he's going to do good. But here's what makes this prediction even more bold. Cleveland was historically bad last season. We're talking about a 3-14 disaster that gave their fans absolutely nothing to cheer about. This wasn't just a disappointing season. This was a complete organizational failure that left everyone questioning whether this franchise could ever be competitive again. Edwards doesn't sugarcoat the reality. They were 3-14 last year. They were 2-4 in their division. But he also sees opportunity in that disaster. You know a lot about your team when you can win in a division. Can you go .500 in your division? Can you go over .500 in the division? That's headed in the right direction. The AFC North is absolutely brutal. The Ravens have Lamar Jackson and won the division. The Bengals have Joe Burrow when he's healthy. The Steelers have a defense that can make any quarterback's life miserable. On paper, Cleveland has no business competing with any of those teams. But Edwards sees something different when he looks at this roster. Not talent necessarily, but opportunity. A chance for a young quarterback to step in and change the entire trajectory of a franchise. If you start a rookie quarterback, the fans are going to say we're okay with that. We can live with that. That's the beauty of rock bottom. There's nowhere to go but up. Cleveland fans have suffered through so much disappointment that they're willing to embrace hope in any form. A rookie quarterback represents possibility, potential, a chance for something different than the mediocrity they've endured for years. Edwards is crystal clear about what he thinks Cleveland should do. I think you got to start the rookie. I just do. You drafted 2 of them. What did you draft them for? The bench and look at each other. You can't say, well, hey man, I'm gonna put you on the shelf. What are you putting them on? Unless you're gonna frame one of them. The logic is undeniable. You don't invest high draft picks in quarterbacks to watch them hold clipboards. You don't use precious roster resources on developmental players unless you plan to develop them. Cleveland made a statement when they drafted 2 rookie quarterbacks. Now they need to follow through on that commitment. But Edwards goes even further, suggesting that both rookies should get opportunities. I think unless one of them starts to run away with it, both of them should get a chance to start meaningful games. Can you imagine the chaos that would create? The week-to-week drama of not knowing who's starting at quarterback? The constant speculation, the media frenzy, the fan debates that would rage on social media and sports talk radio? It would be appointment television every single week. Yet Edwards believes that's exactly what Cleveland needs to do to maximize their evaluation of these young players. You can't make informed decisions based on practice performance alone. You need to see how players respond to real game situations, how they handle pressure, how they perform when everything is on the line. And here's what Edwards is really evaluating. When he talks about these rookies, when you walk into the huddle, you want to see that rookie quarterback control that huddle. When they break the huddle, do the guys in the huddle trust him? Do they trust the quarterback? Especially a young guy, do they trust him? This is about leadership, about commanding respect from veterans who have been in the league for years. It's about walking into a room full of grown men who are fighting for their careers and convincing them that you're the guy who can help them win football games. For a 22-year-old kid, that's an enormous challenge. Most rookies are intimidated by veteran players, afraid to speak up, worried about making mistakes that might cost them credibility. But Sanders has been around professional athletes his entire life. He's been in NFL locker rooms, has seen how the game works at the highest level, understands what it takes to earn respect from older players. Edwards emphasizes just how crucial this aspect of the evaluation will be. Can he lead the team? Can he lead a veteran group of guys? This is a 3 to 14 team. Veterans, when you're a veteran guy, your clock's ticking. You might have another year or 2, and you don't want to go through another 3 to 14 season. Think about being in that position as a veteran player. You're 28, 29, maybe 30 years old. Your body is starting to wear down, your contract situation is uncertain, and you're watching your prime years slip away on a losing team. Then some rookie walks in and tells you he's going to be the difference maker, that you're going to test that kid. You're going to see if he wilts under pressure, if he can handle adversity, if he has the mental toughness to lead men who have been through battles that he can't even imagine. Most rookies fail that test. Most young quarterbacks get overwhelmed by the responsibility and the expectations. But Edwards seems to believe Sanders is different, that he has something special, something that will allow him to not just survive but thrive in that environment. Whoever that quarterback is, you're going to know if those guys trust you and they want to play for him. You're going to figure that out real fast. And let's be honest about Cleveland's roster situation. It's not exactly loaded with Pro Bowl talent. Edwards doesn't sugarcoat it. Defensively, they've got one guy over there that's really, really good that wears the S on his chest. That Garrett guy, he's really good, by the way. They got a few good players on defense, but that's it. That's the extent of Cleveland's elite talent according to Edwards. Myles Garrett and a handful of decent players. Not exactly the supporting cast that makes rookie quarterbacks look like superstars. This isn't a situation where Sanders can lean on a dominant running game, or an elite defense to mask his mistakes. The division competition is even more daunting. Edwards is brutally honest about Cleveland's chances. Are they better than the Ravens? No, 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 no. Are they better than the Cincinnati Bengals? No, no. On paper, it looks hopeless. The Ravens have an MVP quarterback in Lamar Jackson. The Bengals have a franchise player in Joe Burrow when healthy. The Steelers have a defensive tradition and coaching stability that Cleveland can only dream about. But Edwards sees something in this situation that others are missing. Maybe it's the fact that Cleveland has nothing to lose. Maybe it's the opportunity for a young quarterback to grow without the pressure of unrealistic expectations. Maybe it's simply the belief that talent will eventually rise to the top regardless of circumstances. Whatever it is, Edwards is doubling down on his prediction that Sanders will not just compete but dominate. I think it's going to be a rookie, and I think that rookie is going to surprise a lot of people. The stage is set for one of the most compelling storylines in recent NFL history. A quarterback who was passed over due to factors beyond his control, landing with a franchise desperate for hope, in a division that should crush his dreams before they even begin. Either Edwards is about to look like a genius, or he's setting up Sanders for one of the most spectacular failures in recent memory. There's no middle ground here, no room for moral victories, or he showed promise evaluations. Sanders will either prove that NFL teams made a massive mistake in the draft, or he'll confirm that the concerns about him were justified all along. Edwards has made his choice, has staked his reputation on a prediction that could define both Sanders' career and Cleveland's future. The question now is whether Sanders can live up to the faith that Edwards has placed in him. Can he prove that all those teams were wrong to pass on him? Can he show that fear and prejudice cost franchises a franchise-altering talent? Or will this become another cautionary tale about overhyping rookie quarterbacks and expecting miracles from players who aren't ready for the NFL spotlight? The answer will define not just Sanders' career, but possibly the next decade of Cleveland. Browns football. What do you think? Is Herm Edwards a prophet, or is he about to eat his words? Let me know in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed because this story is just getting started.